If you had the power to freeze time, what would you do? Immoral stuff, probably. There is one movie that managed to grasp this perfectly, Jumper. While that's about unlimited teleportation, end result would be pretty similar. I mean, who the FCK wouldn't abuse it? You don't have to become a supervillain, just lay low and ensure yourself a nice comfortable life in luxury. I love the scene where he's watching TV, they're showing a flooding disaster. You think he teleports there to save people, instead he teleports to the other side of the couch to get the remote and change channel. That movie is underrated. Cashback was good. Started out doing all the fun stuff, then got bored and looked for meaning/substance. One of the best dude chick flicks in the world. That movie kick-started puberty for me. How great was this movie? I would have done the exact same thing. Although, when they track me with those machines, I just dress up in a diving suit with a full tank, jump to the middle of the ocean and hang for about 15 minutes until the people die and their machines break. The ocean idea is good. I'm not sure a pursuer would give you enough time to put on a diving suit, and portaling into one when you can be pursued through portals could be dangerous. If we're talking Jumper-style teleportation, then jump into the ocean underwater, swim away for a few seconds, and when the pursuer turns up, jump with them and as much water as you can take to a location 10 feet above concrete, then immediately jump just yourself out and dodge. Even with high reflexes, they're probably not going to get a grapple passing through the water glob to your new portal before you dodge on the other side of it, and they're not going to be able to get themselves through the giant water glob to the portal before they and several tons of water smash into the concrete. Even if they manage to get a grapple through your portal and a rope is now hanging down from it, being smashed into concrete is going to slow them down enough that they most likely won't be able to climb the rope and wiggle through the portal very quickly. If you'd already jumped a third time, to somewhere in the upper atmosphere, then even if they did make it through your last two portals in time, they're going to find themselves having to decide whether to launch themselves out into a fatal drop with, potentially, no idea where your next portal might be or whether they can maneuver through the sky enough to hit it. Heck, maybe you spent some time practicing near high-speed train tracks, jumping along them until you found a train and then jumping into the back of it. Assuming the jump point is fixed with respect to the planet and not the train, it'd have shot out the back of the train before the pursuer could pass through it. Bonus if you make the point face the back of the train, so in the instant you're out of it, the train pulls you back through the point, though without jumping, and anything fired through the jump point isn't aimed at you anymore. Other options, jumping to inside a large waterfall, a split second before hitting the bottom, to disorient a pursuer who is right behind you. Grabbing some night vision goggles in a jump, then jumping into an area at the bottom of a mine shaft, or other completely dark place, and immediately jumping around in that space a dozen times. Can a pursuer instantly tell which jump point is the most recent, in total darkness? Or jumps the furthest? Or will it buy you at least a few seconds to pull the upper atmosphere trick? You have given this a lot of thought. I am impressed. Sleep a lot more. Get pissed off with work? Freeze time, go home, watch TV, eat, sleep and then head back. Got a deadline and haven't done the work? Freeze. Boss being a wang and demanding things without prep, freeze time, etc. etc. The possibilities are endless. This would make me a much lazier person, but to the rest of society I'd be like a superhero. Fuck work, just freeze time and rob a bank whenever you need to resupply on cash. Steal enough cash so you can buy a couple properties and rent them out. It's the American way. IRS would like to speak to you. Freeze time and go to the IRS and clean my records. I guess there's enough time to figure out how to get in. I dunno, I feel like this would cause some butterfly effect shit. If you're not from the future then the butterfly effect ain't your problem. Only butterfly effect would be slightly less money in the pocket of major insurance company stockholders, no biggie. If you have a superpower, please don't use it to accommodate some asshole boss. A sincere plea from people working under asshole bosses everywhere. You realize you just described not robbing banks as supporting asshole bosses. Velp, that's all the motivation I need. Let's roll, boys. Watch TV. But the time has been stopped. How would you watch TV during that period without unfreeze it? Assuming that light can even travel to reach your eyes is quite a stretch when you start talking about freezing time. Well, guess what we are going to think about all night instead of getting all that sleep you've been whining about, my brain. Do air particles move out of the way? Can I breathe? Or would moving them in frozen time mean they're moving above light speed and as soon as I breathe the air explodes? This man knows relativity. Well, if you can't watch TV with streaming or downloaded content, then surely you can't move, or breath or anything really. So as soon as you stop, time existence would be over? Following the logic, surely if I can't interact with my laptop or TV, then I shouldn't be able to interact with the organs in my body? Are we saying this seems like a great ability and then you just die and kill everyone and everything? My best guess would be that time would stop for everyone and everything else except you. You could move and move objects but not interact with things that require other things to be unfrozen. Like a computer. You could touch things or people and not unfreeze them. Think of it this way. If you stop all time with only you as the exception, then electrons won't flow, so no power. But lights won't turn off because there is no time to turn off. If electrons don't move, then do photons not move? Because if photons don't move, then you would become a really weird version of blind, instantly. You'd be able to see when you move into photons, though. WTF. Are you still aging while time is frozen? You would go old so much faster. Not really, obviously, though it depends on how long you freeze time for. If you froze time for an hour a day, that would be 365 hours, 15 days, extra in a year. If you did that for 40 years straight, you would only gain 1.6 years. That's not a huge difference. I don't know. If time is frozen and it freezes your cells aging, etc., then surely you don't need to breathe because you have no need for oxygen or food for that matter. But then how can you move, etc.? So I guess you do age, and I agree you'd age much faster than everyone else, and end up with a lonely life, but you could have some hella good times. If you consider it a sciencey thing, how would you see photons no longer moving? You'd have to constantly be moving forward to deliver light to your eyes to see with. You always have to assume movie rules for these types of things. When time's stopped, thing work, light, breathing, electricity, gravity, car engines, when you use them, but all other things/people are stopped. You don't age. You can sleep and get rest without worry. Find someone who's truly mean to others and constantly put giant stains on their shirts at work in the middle of the day. That's really clever. Enough to take them down a peg, but not so much that you're escalating it. H.G. Wells wrote a story about this power. The guy who invents it gets several meters away before he realizes that it's awfully hot, and then concludes that the friction with the air is still affecting him, and he's not sure he can make it back to restart time before bursting into flames. I'll definitely need an Eli 5 to understand this. Not a scientist, but I'm pretty sure that if all of time stops, then air stops, like flowing and stuff. So walking through it means physically pushing the air into more air. Heat is just particles bouncing off each other faster, right? So the air directly around him would be compressed more and more. Pretty sure he could solve this by just standing still for, well, if the particles are still froze, then for any amount of time. Though continuing in that same direction would be just as complicated. Going back should be easy, he's created a vacuum behind him. But if air is frozen with time, doesn't that mean all temperatures are now absolute zero? This is getting a little heavy for a "do you want to see people naked" question. I took it as more of a "what would you steal if you could get away with it" question. As you move, a very tiny amount of heat is generated by the air rubbing against you. The faster, the hotter, it's what makes smaller asteroids burn up in the atmosphere. The reason faster speeds cause faster heating is that there's less time for air particles to push each other around and away via the pressure difference, kinda like how it's much harder to move something quickly in a pool than to do so slowly. With time frozen, the air only moves when you push it, meaning far more heat generated. Time being frozen also means heat can't radiate away, meaning that eventually, even just standing still and the rise and fall of your chest would heat you up to the point where you burst into flames. I might be a bit off, but gimme a break. It's pretty close at the least, and I'm a high school graduate, not a PhD in thermodynamics or something of the likes. I guess study. Or do chores. Infinite time would mean I can spend as much as I want learning any skill I want provided I know enough. Unfortunately, I am almost out of uni, no more exams. Wish I could turn back time, get this ability and then do it all over again. You would just get old really fast as far as anyone else knew. Time is stopped for everyone but you, so you keep aging. You actually need to think of it as a very precious commodity that gets used up rapidly. Every minute used now is a minute lost with your loved ones at the end of your life. If time is stopped, why do you age? If time was truly stopped, then you would not be able to move. Nothing could move. What they are talking about is the movie version of time stopping, where the main character can move and interact with stuff while everything else is frozen. If you can move, then your heart is beating too and other organs are functioning. Since the organs are working, they are aging. Okay, so since time is part of space-time, when you stop time, gravity no longer affects you. Any step you take is dangerous and can send you up. Worse, when you restart time, you've lost your inertia, so you'll go careening off into space since the planet travels at some ridiculous speed around the sun. The sun's traveling through the galaxy and the galaxy itself is moving. It's literally the worst superpower ever. I would walk up to a random stranger, making intense eye contact until he notices me, and then stop time. While time is stopped, I would remove his underwear and put his/her trousers back on so he doesn't notice, and start time again. Then I would reach for my bag and take out his underwear, still making eye contact. If he or she doesn't check for himself, I'd point to his trousers until he or she notices it's gone. While he's distracted by looking at his/her junk, I'd stop time again and get to a safe distance, then start time again. They won't know what hit them. If I wasn't a broke teen, I'd give you platinum. I would probably freeze time for a bit. Then unfreeze it. Then maybe later freeze it for a little bit more. Maybe go get a kebab. A kebab, you say? Go on. Steal a lot of money. Edit, from banks though, their money is insured after all. Why not drug lords? Escobar had to weigh his cash because he could afford to count it and spent $9,000 per month on rubber bands for it. I don't. The cartels would notice a few $100K missing here and there. Who cares if they notice it? I'd take it all and burn their production to the ground, and probably them as well. After I took just ungodly amounts of product home to keep in my basement. I refuse to do that shit anymore because it supports the bastard cartels. But stealing it from a kingpin while time is frozen? And then murdering him and burning down his shit? Homie, my nose is gonna be full for years. Ethically sourced fair trade cocaine. Let's just say I'd have to first find out where they film the Powerball results. But the sales for those tickets end before the drawing. So what would you do? Unless you would rig the machine somehow. You freeze time, then put the numbers you chose into the selector tube thingy. I'd go into people's houses. I like looking at floor plans. I honestly wouldn't take anything. I'd be tempted to move something. Just a little bit. Enough for someone to notice the move because of the dust. Shift everything 2-4 centimeters-ish, in a single direction, so everything gets shifted 2 inches north, not in random directions, all along the same relative axis. Set up an internet-accessible camera because for a few days they'll be running into things non-stop as their muscle memory thinks things are farther or closer than they are. Use the tapes to farm karma by exploiting Reddit's extreme schadenfreude. Screams our Warudo and prevent a French guy from coming upstairs. By running down the stairs to physically move him back down a couple of steps and then running back up before you unstop time to look cool, all while trying to hide the fact that you're out of breath after the third time. He was probably within 10 meters of Dio, he could have just used the world to do it. I always thought of freezing time and taking any car to joyride, but what if I crash and kill myself? Would time unfreeze or would it be stuck forever? Time's relative, so you'd only be stopping it for you. If you died, your body would just teleport, from the perspective of everyone else, to wherever you died, and other than that life would continue as normal. It makes sense. Also, I think it's kind of the same concept as characters who travel very fast like Superman or the Flash. That reminds me in Smallville when Lana first saw Clark use super speed. From her perspective, Clark just disappeared. Would time freeze work in the form of perspective? You could die and time will remain frozen forever, but your death will just be less than second in the grand scheme of other people's time. I think I'm trying to say is, time will still continue on, but your remains will forever be stuck in that second. I would imagine that you'd have to be very, very careful with your powers. If you fucked up and got seen at 2 places at once, got into a jam and puffed away, effed with people in an impossible way, etc., you could very easily draw the attention of a government agency or some organization that has a lot of power, resources, and could really, really use someone like you. If you get captured, say by drugging, stopping time won't mean shit if you're in a cell. They could kidnap people you love and turn you into a killing machine. Or, they could decide you're a loose cannon and just shoot you from a distance. The list goes on. There's a lot of ways it could go very bad, very quickly. It could go very well, too, but you'd have to be smart about it. I'd take a long time before any government agency would actually accept the idea of someone who could freeze time, and it'd be difficult to catch you. If you started to feel drugged, just freeze time and walk away. Perhaps freeze time long enough for the drugs to wear off. If they tried to force you to do anything, say, assassinations, you could just freeze time and walk away because you'd obviously be outside a cell if you're going to perform an assassination. It's not obvious what you could do if they kidnapped someone to force you to do stuff, but not a lot of government agents would be okay with doing that. Also, you could easily turn into a loose cannon who kills the people who are trying to force you to do things. I mean, what's stopping you from murdering everyone who took her loved ones? You have infinite time after all, and what could they do about you cutting out their throats while time is frozen? Seriously, time stop is a broken AF skill in a game. This would never make it through playtesting. Your ability to freeze time would make you legit unstoppable. They can't drug you since fick you will freeze time and wait out how long's the drugs last. Put me in a cell, bro, I have infinite time to break out, and with simple physics I can simply kick the same spot a few times while time is frozen, then start time. All that momentum, from multiple kicks, transferred in an instant would equals tons of force. I could break through pretty much most walls. Change in momentum / time equals impulse. Time would be near zero and the change in momentum would be from a few kicks and punches, but the force is transferred near instantly, hence the impulse is many times that of just kicking something a few times. Time stop is super dumb and broken. It gives you pseudo super speed, pseudo super strength, pseudo super intelligence. Heck, just spend a few hours planning what to do in a think fast situation. I saw this somewhere else on Reddit. Condition bullies by and jerks by pausing time and slapping them, then going back to previous position whenever they are mean. Random pain when mean will make them nice. Also elaborate pranks making people think they are going insane, that sort of thing. I think that is the plot of one of the Little Miss books. Instead of freezing time, every time Little Miss Naughty tries to play a trick on someone, Mr. Impossible would turn invisible and tweak her nose. By the end of the week she had learned to be nice to others. I would get a road roller and throw it at a Japanese guy. Half Japanese. Fun fact, Jotaro is more Italian than Giorno. Jotaro is 1/4 Italian due to Suzy Q, thus, he is more Italian than Giorno, who is English/Japanese. Quick flex on Giorno. Pick up people when they are going upstairs and put them back at the bottom and look menacingly from the top. Also 9 seconds is my current limit. The people have to be French toe. Of course.